The Twins are making moves after we find out that they'll be back on Bally Sports North for at least one more season. And when I say they're making moves, I guess they're making a move, which actually broke just a few minutes before we hit record. So we've got up to the minute accurate news here on today's edition of Locked On Twins.
You are Locked On Twins, your daily Minnesota Twins podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello again, and welcome back to Locked On Twins. I'm your host, Brandon Warren, and you can unfollow me on Twitter at Brandon_WARNE. And we've got our friend back in black, Mr. Dave Brown. How are we doing this evening?
I'm your friend. I love to hear that, Brandon. I like having friends. It's the best thing in the world. I'm gonna
try it. I'm gonna try it someday. It reminds me of our off-camera discussion, but not important for right now. We got a lot of fun stuff to get to. We got your questions, not Dave's questions, but listener questions, that is. And also, the Twins signed Carlos Santana, or at least that's the rumor going around right now. Darren Wolfson, who works for Channel 5 here in town, a pretty reliable source. So if that's coming to fruition, we're going to spend a nice little chunk of time talking about that. But first, thanks for making Locked On Twins your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. And of course, as part of the Locked On Podcast Network, we're your team every day. Love to hear from you in the chat, in the comments. These shows are especially popular when the Twins do something like, trading Jorge Polanco, like Joe Mauer getting into the Hall of Fame. So I love to see the Twins doing a little moving and shaking. But today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. New customers join today, and they'll get $200 in bonus bets if their first bet of $5 or more wins. Visit FanDuel.com/locked-on to get started. So we've kind of surmised, Dave, for the last while, indeterminate amount of time, that the Twins would add at least one hitter, if not two. And we kind of struggled back and forth for what the prototype would be. Would it be a first base outfield type? Would it be a first base DH type? Would it be an outfield DH type? And it was kind of like one of those books where you read the page and then it says, if you go through the door, turn to page 17. If you stay outside, turn to page 38. And it was kind of like you could talk yourself into about 10 different ways of doing things. And to that end, I'm surprised that the Twins got out in front of it. And they got out in front of it with someone we haven't been talking about that much. And that's Carlos Santana, who has played for Cleveland, Pittsburgh. I'm trying to remember who else he's played for. He's been around the block.
He was on the Royals for about half an hour.
Yeah.
No, it's a whole year, but.
Was he on Milwaukee too, if I'm not mistaken?
Yeah, I think so. That sounds
that might have been who he got traded to. Yeah, ended the season there. But kind of a short, squatty, thickly built first base DH type. I think he's been fairly decent defensively in the past. Switch hitter, if I'm not mistaken, former catcher, and just an all-around useful player. And it's a low wattage move. It's not one that's going to make people go crazy, and it's not one that's going to make people say, oh, cool, they spent their Bally cash that they found out they were getting, which we'll get to in a little bit because we don't know how much that's going to be. But really, it just comes down to, they kind of address a need. And I think I'm going to like seeing Carlos Santana, maybe in the top of the order batting around Edouard Julien. It's a good guy for him to watch, a veteran hitter.
Well, I think it's a move that makes a lot of sense. And I think we probably brought his name up as a possibility, but we didn't really focus on him. But he makes a lot of sense for a couple of reasons. He's still a useful hitter. He was maybe about 10% above league average last year, or actually maybe not quite. He was with the Brewers, but he maybe about 3% above. But he's got 300 career home runs. This is probably surprising to many people.
Yep.
1,000 RBIs. He's a 242, 356, 432 slash man. Hit 23 home runs last year, which is not his career high, but he's a little better he's a switch hitter, and he's a little better against left-handed pitching. So he is a guy that you can put in there as a right-hander sometimes, and he'll help the Twins in an area where they needed some assistance. And he's different from Kirilloff, and Kirilloff is just a left-handed hitter. So that shapes up to be a platoon, but he is 37. If something bad happens to Kirilloff for an extended period of time, you can keep Carlos Santana in the lineup, and it's not such a bad thing. He's a really good bench player, and it's not always something that people think about anymore. But with the DH in both leagues, but he's very useful there, and everywhere he goes, he has a great reputation in the clubhouse as a guy who, as catchers do. He's a good communicator, and bilingually at least, and he's good in that respect. So I kind of asked, this losing Jorge Polanco, do the Twins lose anything in the clubhouse? And not necessarily so, but this is a guy who, in two different languages can help a team get through a long 6-month season. So I see nothing but pluses, but a lot of pluses with this guy.
1.7 Fangraphs WAR this past season. He walks a ton, doesn't really strike out, and if he hits 230, 240, he's going to get on base at a 320, 330 clip, and he'll have some pop, like you stated. And he's at a point now too where in his career he's just kind of going where the opportunities are, and so he's been on a handful of teams in just the last couple seasons via free agency and then mid-season trades. And I think the nice thing too is it gives the Twins kind of like I don't know how I would describe it to people listening, but it's like if two lines are together, one pushes against the other to give it as much space as it needs. Mm-hmm. If Alex Kirilloff stays healthy, yeah, sure, if you're Carlos Santana, you might be upset if you only play, let's say, 40 games. But in the Twins' eyes, that would be a good thing. That would mean Alex Kirilloff stayed healthy enough to play that many games. It's not a spot where they have to feel like they will either lean on Santana heavily or not at all. They can let the situation play out, and they should be protected. Again, Santana going into an age 38 season, there's not a lot of things he hasn't seen. He debuted in 2010, for crying out loud. Like, he and Target Field, their careers are the same age. So he's been around a minute. This is year number 15 for both of them. And I'll just be eager to see what the plan is, what happens in terms of what's next. Because, again, like we said in Thursday's episode, they can't stop pushing. And I don't think this is going to be it. But, just kind of a flurry of moves here, relatively speaking, over the last couple of days.
Traded for Casey Blake once upon a time, I believe. Went out from the Dodgers system to Cleveland.
Do you remember who Casey Blake debuted with?
I think it was the Twins, right?
It was the Twins, yeah. Back when they had it was kind of like the Paul Sorrento thing where they had some pretty good players, and so they had younger guys who would come through and just kind of be blocked.
Right.
And so Casey Blake ended up going someplace else. There's been a few. Garrett Jones is another one who comes to mind. Solid players who don't blow up anywhere else, but they're nice players.
Yeah.
And so nice little. Not
Garrett Jones and I born in the same hospital. Not at the same time. I think I've mentioned that before.
Who's that?
Harvey, Illinois. You asked about Carlos Santana's defense. It's usually very good. In fact, last year, you have one guess as to who Fielding Bible ranked as the number one, the first baseman on defense. Who do you think it was?
Carlos Santana.
It was Carlos Santana. And he's finished in the top 10 or 11 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times at first base. So his kind of down year was with Kansas City. They come to the Royals and not so hot, but only ranked 14th that year. And actually 21st with the Cleveland in 2019. But he was 7th 2 years ago. He was 3rd 4 years ago. So even as he ages, he's 37, I think. Carlos Santana keeps himself in great shape and has turned himself into an excellent first baseman. It's kind of, it's a little bit echoey of Joe Mauer switching positions. Maybe I'm grasping at things a little bit, but he wanted to be a catcher. That didn't work out, but he's turned into a solid hitter, a great clubhouse guy, and an excellent first baseman. It's been a heck of a career.
Yeah, would you say he's smooth over there? Probably.
Yeah, it's a hot one, isn't it? It's
Yep.
yes.
76th percentile for outs above average for range. His StatCast sliders, and I mean, I don't subscribe to them like they're the law or the
They
gospel,
sound
but
yummy.
yeah, right. Maybe with like some pickled onions or something on them. A lot of blue in his hitting and a lot of red in his like visual stuff. So I don't know if he could do a decent Donovan Solano late in the season impersonation where he was playing a lot of first base.
Yeah.
I don't know what the money's going to look like. Maybe 5-6 million. I would guess if it's higher than that, I'd be surprised just because again, there's so many players available of this type. He's at an age where people are not going to throw money at him, and he was slightly above average last year. So if that's come out here since we started recording, many apologies because we can't be keeping eyes on both things at once. Now,
even though we have 4 eyes, 6 if I count my glasses.
Yeah, and I was actually. Let's take a quick second, talk about our friends at FanDuel. When we come back, we will talk about a little more about Santana and then your questions because people sent in some pretty great stuff. But again, a word from FanDuel. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Happy Super Bowl to all who celebrate from FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. If you're like me, Super Bowl Sunday is a big stinking deal. We're looking for the best place in the living room to sit. You got to get the acoustics right so you can hear the speakers, and that way you can listen to whether it's Post Malone for you or any of the other performers. In addition to the game, you got to have the perfect sound and all that stuff too. But there's also lots of ways to get involved in the game that FanDuel can help you with too. You can end your season with a W or 2 or 3. Not only can you bet on who will win Super Bowl 58, but FanDuel also has bets for which players will score a touchdown, how many points will be scored, and a whole bunch of other things that you couldn't even imagine. So just go check it out. New customers, join today and you'll get $200 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to sign up. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, Dave Brown. We got some questions here that we're going to get to in just a moment. But first, I just kind of want to put a bow or a button on the Santana discussion. It didn't really occur to me that he would be the choice. I just and we have someone who asked a question or mentioned Garrett Cooper, who to me would have been of a similar ilk, but maybe they're shooting more for the clubhouse vibe. Maybe they're shooting more for, listen, we can't guarantee that much playing time because ideally Alex Kirilloff will be playing most every day or at least against righties. In general, though, not a bad move. It's low wattage. It's not going to be make or break. Though with that said, Donovan Solano was 3rd in plate appearances. I know I say that every episode last year. So there's room for it to be a thing. But I have no qualms with it. But again, you got to keep going. Got to keep moving. Wasn't the only move the Twins made today either. They claimed Daniel Duarte off waivers. A reliever built kind of like Carlos Santana. So, boy, when the stove is hot, it is piping hot in Minnesota.
I found it strange that the Twins said goodbye to Ryan Jensen off the 40-man roster the same day that the center Ryan Jensen from the Buccaneers retired. So it's very
synergy.
What?
Synergy.
Yeah, I thought you said Sinner. I'm like,
no, I was talking about Synergy
Field,
where the Reds used to play. Synergy Field. No,
yes.
Synchronicity, synchronizing. I don't know. I'm just kind of delirious here. I just watched the Timberwolves lose a heartbreaker to the Magic, and now I'm trying to pick up the pieces and carry on. But I digress. So Santana. I mean, I have no problem with the Santana move. I'm not gonna be out here banging the drum for it or anything like that. But
this isn't Cleveland.
Right, exactly. Well, I don't know if you know this, but at a lot of Minneapolis sporting events, the bucket drummers are outside doing their and then you can throw them a couple bucks or whatever, and they're incredibly talented, but not the same as Cleveland.
You see, you see them or hear them in Kansas City sometimes, and Chicago a lot at White Sox and Bulls. So I know the Buckets guys. You mentioned Garrett Cooper. Cooper had a couple of decent offensive seasons. I think if you adjust for that terrible hitters environment in Milwaukee, he's about 5 years younger than Santana and a similar hitter, maybe 10% for his career, above average, and maybe about league average last year with the Miami and with the Padres. So, but Santana, superior defensive guy. I think that's one of the areas where we don't you don't think of defense is like, all right, well, at first base you don't think of it the same way you do at other positions, but the right defensive player, and I'm not exactly sure all of what Santana is good at on defense. Like, is he good at
it's incredibly hard, as Ron Washington would say.
It is incredibly hard. So yeah, we should just always listen to Wash on that. So you can't overlook the defensive value even at his advanced age that Santana gives. So I think that's where these aren't intangibles, but they're just not necessarily the first thing you think of. But helps them against left-handed pitching, helps them on defense, gives them a cushion in case bad things happen to Kirilov. And did I say good in the clubhouse? That too.
Yeah, so, I think for vibes purposes, it's going to be a good move. With that said, too, the Twins are in a spot where, in a lot of ways, they can focus on vibes. End of career guys who, it would be cool if you get a ring. It's not like you're watching him like you would late career Peyton Manning hoping for a ring, but right. Certainly is not, or late career Torrey Hunter coming back to Minnesota instead of Kansas City in 2015. But yeah, by the way, did you know, and maybe you did, maybe you didn't, because I don't know if you ever went to a Metrodome Johan Santana start, but when they play music when the pitcher's taking their first warm-up tosses before the first inning?
Yeah.
They used to play the song that I have, Give Me Your Heart, Make It Real, or Let's Forget About It. That was his warm-up song that they would play, and it worked, man. Carlos Santana, Johan Santana, subtlety, maybe not that director's biggest gift, but it's a fond memory that I have. So we're coming full circle with a different Carlos Santana.
Well, I think that's great. I don't know his answer to, I think it's been addressed. Are you aware of this musician named Carlos Santana? And what do you think of that? And do you like him? I'm sure he's been asked those questions before. So it wouldn't be the end of the world to revisit it. I think he's got a sense of humor about it. So,
well, I sent you a couple stories that I wrote like 6 years ago. I think I'm the guy who would write that story because
for sure.
I'm obviously a very serious journalist. Let's take some questions. We actually had a bunch come in for Thursday.
No, I don't have one. I'm sorry.
Well, good, because you're gonna have to answer some of them.
Okay.
So we got a bunch of questions from not only Thursday night, but this evening as well. And some of them will dovetail really nicely with what has gone on with the Twins here in the last hour. Good friend James Carlson, though, said, why is the front office complacent? Why are they not striving to improve, even if it helps just a little bit? I think, honestly, they looked at the needs of this roster and understood that right-handed hitters were going to be in ample supply all off-season long. And if they would have started going off the shelves, so to speak, maybe they act sooner. Maybe they go get a Randall Grichuk if suddenly Carlos Santana gets snapped up by somebody. I just think now is like, okay, they're close enough to spring training, and you got a player like Santana who just wants somewhere to play next year, most likely at his age. I think it was just a good marriage. With that said, I don't know if I'd call it complacent. I think it's hamstrung a bit by budget stuff, but also too, they're patient, and the patience paid off in the Corbin Burns trade, where I think while it was a good trade and they got plenty back, I think some of us were surprised that it wasn't, Jordan Westberg or Heston Scherstedt or any non-Gunnar Henderson / Adley Rutschman prospect, Kobe Mayo. The Orioles got a really good pitcher, and they still kept a large portion of their top end depth. I think the Twins are thinking that way relatively to hopefully a starter with multiple years of control. And so that still may happen. So I don't know if complacent is the right word, but I understand the frustration.
I think maybe a better word would be comfortable. And I think you can, you can look at being comfortable as not an insult, but a critique too. I mean, you can be, as a fan, kind of unhappy with that. There's a certain vibe in the division right now about who's contending and who's not, and uh, you know, I, I suppose I'd be maybe concerned about Cleveland jumping up and doing something, but it doesn't, just with what they have on the roster, because they're not going to bring anybody in as a free agent, and they seem to be. It's like they can't wait to trade Shane Bieber. So,
Right.
I don't know where the competition is coming from. I think there is something like complacency happening in that. I don't think that they're afraid that they're going to be overtaken, and I think so. That's maybe how either they rationalize or uh, whatever word you want to use for that, being hamstrung by the real higher ups, the money people, about why haven't they given $100 million contract to somebody? I think that's what that's what the caller, the writer, the critiquer, I think is saying that well, yeah, he probably realizes that there have been moves made, but there haven't been any moves that just knock your socks off or any other underwear. So you have to look closely at these deals that they are making, and then realize, like you said, some uncertainties about money are going to make it so whatever the Twins do right now, it isn't going to be spectacular. One word that I like to use is patience. I think everybody needs to be patient with who the front office brings in, and the team that we see now is not going to be exactly like the one on opening day, and it's not going to be the one on July 1st.
Right. I was listening to a podcast about a week ago, and one of the hosts said that there was something that he heard that stopped him dead in his tracks, and it was the phrase "comfort is a thief." So comfort will steal from you, and I thought that was actually really interesting, like kind of a mantra of if you're comfortable, that's when things can go sideways. And that's where I think a lot of the angst from Twins fans comes from is, hey, it's great that you guys broke through and did your thing, but you can't be fat and happy on that. There's not enough. You didn't store up enough acorns for the winter to get fat and happy. You're going to have to work to stay atop your perch, which I think is totally fair. Greg Masterson, who is Twins Twitter Rookie of the Year from 2023, says over or under 1.5 more hitters acquired this offseason. Now, I did ask him to clarify, and this was before we knew that Carlos Santana was coming here. Net or was it net or new? So if they were to, let's say, hypothetically subtract Max Kepler, that does not count in this calculation. So all things considered, will they add Carlos Santana and another hitter before the end of the season? Dave, I want to hear your answer before I give mine.
If we just make it simple like that, is Santana the last guy? I don't think so. I think there's an outfielder coming in some form or fashion. I don't think, I think there needs to be one more right-handed hitter in the outfield. And Santana's a switch hitter, so someone like Soler or Adam Duvall or Shelley Duvall or Shelley Duncan. So one of those people is one of those kind of people I think is still, and you said there's lots of people in free agency. I think one of them is coming to the Twins roster.
Well, I was thinking Shelley Long. So sure. Birds of a feather flock together.
Cheers to you.
Exactly. Give me a ring sometime. And again, there's still lots of opportunities that they could theoretically get a right-handed outfielder and trade for a number 2 starter. They'd be in pretty good position without having done all that much. I don't know if that's what's going to happen, but that's what I would do. I would go get. Honestly, I'd get Duvall just because I do want someone who can at least stand in center field. I know everybody loves Soler, but if it was going to be Soler or JD Martinez, that would have been them instead of Carlos Santana. That's where my thought process is. So Duvall to me just makes far too much sense, and it would finish off what actually could be a pretty dang good offense. But I am also taking the over on 1.5. But I also think this probably closes the door on Donovan Solano coming back.
Yeah, I think Santana definitely. I was thinking about that too. That this Santana has now he's getting those Donovan Solano appearances. So with everyone else being healthy anyway, so I think that the if they bring in a new player, it's going to be somebody adept in the outfield. Solano and Santana are infielders when they play of some form. So I think, but outfield is where maybe, they have lots of good organizational depth with young players, but I don't know if they have enough experience to, and I'm going beyond like Castro and their prospects I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I think they could use another right-handed hitter still.
I think the White Sox would try Carlos Santana in right field probably.
Wow. They've tried just about everybody else since Jermaine Dye left. So they've been trying to find a right fielder since whenever that was. I don't remember exactly, 2009 or something.
I think it's 2009 because I took over an orphaned fantasy baseball team that year, and I had Jermaine Dye after he'd retired, Paul Bird after he'd retired, Marlon Bird after he'd retired, Larry Bird after. It was literally like horrible, and I turned it into a winner the last year before the league folded. I picked up a whole bunch of prospects. Nobody cares. This isn't locked on.
At least we didn't have Big Bird when he got small.
And Mark Fidrich before he died. It was really a who's who of birds.
Well, congratulations on your championship.
Yeah, didn't mean much. Here's a fun one. Corey Moen, who great, awesome dude, asked, will you and Answer Dave Brown be my friends? Oh, and who is a free agent you'd bet the Twins signed if you had to bet on one? Duvall for me. And I think, we've talked about some relievers. I think that the door closed on major league contracts to relievers with Topa's acquisition. If they can get, I don't know if Brad Hand is still a free agent, but like a guy like that on a minor league deal, or someone like, and he's was born in Chaska or born in Minnesota. So there is some connection there. I don't know if he really identifies as a Twins type as a fan as a kid or what. But I think any other moves that they're going to make are going to be minor league deals for, guys who might have a chance to help the team at some point in the season, a big league deal to an outfield right-handed hitter, and then a trade for a starting pitcher. Like, to me, that's the path. So if you want to talk about a free agent, it's Duvall. That's my answers 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5.
I don't think it'll be Michael Taylor, even though he might be. I don't know if does that send a message to Buxton, like, we're not sure about this, Byron. I don't know.
He'd be a nasty fourth outfielder, though. Like, that'd be a luxurious.
He would. Yeah. I don't know if that is even a thing, but it's just something I thought of. It's like Buxton is very confident about getting back in the outfield. Taylor would be, at least defensively. Although last year he dropped off, but I don't know what to make of those metrics. Sometimes short season or one season defensive metrics are hard to be reliable, but he's a little below average hitter, and so I was thinking maybe Taylor, but I don't know what kind of message that would send to Buxton. Like, we're just getting this guy just in case. But I guess you could say that about anybody they bring in. So although Soler and maybe Duvall can still play some center, but yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I wouldn't put Soler out there. Ugh.
Oh no, I mean like Soler is a corner.
Oh, okay, got it. Yeah, no, make sure that people don't hear.
Yeah. No, I was just kind of going all over the place there. But Soler is a corner, if he's not a DH, so definitely not a center field. I mean, he wasn't a center fielder ever. So
well, I'm already Corey Moen's friend, so that part of the question is up to you if you want to be his friend. You guys can discuss that offline, though. Here's a fun
one. Give
it
time, Corey. I can't commit right now.
Sure. Here's a fun one. Maybe one of the last ones we'll get to. Arn Anderson's Zubas, probably my favorite name on Twitter going right now, asks, with Buxton claiming he'll be good to go playing center field and Castro the likely backup, where does this leave Austin Martin? Could he and Brooks Lee have spots this year? I think the worst kept secret, and actually Narita Poke also asked about Alex Kirilloff and Jose Miranda making the opening day roster, assuming neither are traded. Those two things to me are kind of connected in that if they add another bat, it's going to push at least one, if not two guys off the roster to start the season based on just the numbers game. You know, even just I've been playing MLB The Show, and I did kind of like a mock of it. And like, you got to have at least one player who's pretty good down in AAA. And I think it might be Miranda, but
what's his options situation? Do we know?
What's that?
I never know what a person's options situation is.
Well, and he had the shoulder, so he's coming back from that. I'll pull up our good friends at Roster Resource before we get out of here, because they'll have some information for us.
Oh man, we're up against your deadline, aren't we?
Yeah, we're getting there. We'll be fine. Miranda has one more option left, so I think he gets sent back down to AAA. Yeah. How about a quick one? Where do you think Eddie Rosario will end up? Somebody asked that one.
I don't have any idea. Oh, you know what? I mean, he'd be good on the White Sox. Although I don't know how great in the right field he'd be, but
horrible. Why does it matter?
What they got for sure. Oh,
John Santana,
$5.25 million.
5.25. Yeah, I can mess with that. Yeah, Rosario either there, the Angels, or maybe the Nationals, where he can get some playing time. And,
I mean, there's a lot of teams that could use him,
but
actually, I mean, yeah, it's not ideal for the Twins because he's more of a left-handed hitter. But
yeah. Right. But anyway, we gotta fly. This has been Locked On Twins. Thanks for visiting, and we'll see you tomorrow night.